It was a story that seemed to spread through the rock community in Los Angeles before it even hit the tabloids. Former Kiss drummer Criss was living homeless under the Santa Monica Pier, spending his nights sleeping on the floor of a nearby men's bathroom. But it had a happy ending. He would be saved by two Hollywood actors and musician who heard about the plight of the drummer. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Oh wait, there's more. Well, as it turned out, the story wasn't even remotely close to being true. That's what we're going to explore in today's video, and how it all culminated with literally all the players in the story confronting one another on national television. You can't blame people for thinking the story was true. If you were going to impersonate a rock star, why not pick one that wears makeup on stage and has been out of the public spotlight for quite some years? It was 1991, and it had been over a decade since the catman Criss had either left or was fired by Kiss. He was living a quiet life, which was in sharp contrast to his days in Kiss telling Spin magazine, "I lived an insane life for so many years that it almost made me effing nuts." By 1991, Criss had cleaned up his act. He was living in Redondo Beach with his former Playboy Playmate wife Deborah Jensen and raising their daughter together. He was also working on an autobiography and playing with other musical acts and writing solo material. On New Year's Day 1991, Criss was at LAX airport on his way to New York City to visit his 62-year-old mother who was dying from cancer. As he waited to board the flight, he saw an issue of Star magazine at one of the newsstands. It had a 2-page story devoted to the former Kiss drummer and how he had fallen on hard times. Titled "Kiss Star Hits the Skids," Star magazine had allegedly interviewed a homeless Criss. He would recall in his book Makeup to Breakup, My Life In and Out of Kiss, "I was blown away. There was a photo of some bum who was claiming to be me lying in the toilets in Santa Monica, and next to it was a photo of me in my Kiss makeup. I was furious," he'd remember. It would turn out that Criss's mother would unfortunately pass away before the drummer's plane touched down in New York. His mother had heard about the Star story, and Criss had been unable to clarify it to her. It would be celebrities Roseanne Barr and her then husband Tom Arnold, and Crosby, Stills and Nash drummer Dallas Taylor, who came to the fake Criss's rescue. Arnold would end up venturing down to the Santa Monica Pier and offered help to the Imposter. He would tell the local Wisconsin radio station WAPL that he initially met resistance from some of the homeless people congregating around the Imposter since he was their meal ticket. The Imposter was dealing with substance abuse issues relating to alcohol, and Arnold attempted to get him into the same rehab clinic he'd previously attended himself. The story took an even more bizarre turn when one of Criss's former alleged lovers, a woman named Sherry Ann Thompson, got in touch with Tom Arnold. She would send the Imposter a first-class ticket to come stay with her and her mother in Massachusetts. The Imposter would get himself thrown off the plane for disorderly conduct while under the influence of alcohol and would show up to Massachusetts late. Cheryl Ann Thompson would tell People magazine what happened the moment she laid eyes on the Imposter at the airport, remembering, "I almost threw up when he stepped off the plane." It would be People magazine who exposed the whole hoax. It had turned out the man living at the Santa Monica Pier pretending to be Kiss drummer Criss was a 39-year-old man named Christopher Dickinson who was from Illinois. People magazine would interview Dickinson, who would tell the magazine, "It just got to be well known around Santa Monica that that's who I was. I'd gotten my real ID stolen. Why I said it, I don't really know. I was just very confused, very mixed up from alcohol," he'd say. The Imposter would know enough, though, about Criss's life to fool people for years, and Spin magazine would claim that the whole ruse started when Dickinson was in a bar one night, several years earlier, and someone mistook him for the former Kiss drummer. He played along and drank for free the whole night, so he continued with the hoax. Getting back to Dickinson's plane ride to Massachusetts, it would turn out that Cheryl Ann Thompson felt bad for Dickinson and let him stay with her anyways, telling TV program Hard Copy, "I felt pretty compelled to help this person because he did indeed fly across the country." He would end up spending several weeks with Thompson and her mother, who took the opportunity to bask in the media spotlight. Thompson and her mother would make the rounds, appearing on Geraldo Rivera and Phil Donahue's talk show, doing interviews with People magazine and Hard Copy. But in another strange turn of events for the story, it's pretty rare for magazines or newspapers to turn down sensational stories like this. But Spin magazine claimed they declined an interview with Thompson because they felt her and her mother were just opportunity seekers. Spin magazine would publish the following in their article, saying, "Spin declined to pay Cheryl Ann for her story, but she suddenly appeared at the magazine's New York offices anyways, following a taping of the Geraldo show. She had some Polaroids of her with a member of Air Supply, and she would also claim to the magazine that Criss's wife, and I quote, hates her, and the magazine would go on to claim that her mother wanted assurances of signed contracts with money transfers. But the magazine grew weary, wondering if the pair were pulling a con, and abruptly cancelled the interview. Criss would confess how crazy his life had gotten with all the media attention telling Spin magazine. Suddenly I'm forced to come out. Pictures of my house are in magazines all across the country. Roseanne Barr is calling me on the phone. There's people hanging around wherever I go. It's like, come on, I just got back from burying my mother. We were actually hounded by reporters during the funeral, he'd remember. Criss would end up suing Star magazine, and then he ended up getting an offer from his manager to appear on the Phil Donahue show. His manager thought it was a great opportunity to clear the air and confront his imposter, as well as his alleged former lover. He would agree to do the Donahue show. That episode of the Phil Donahue show would air on February 5th, 1991, and would also feature a hardcore Kiss fan, Tom Arnold, as well as Peter Criss's ex-wife, who called into the show, and his current wife at the time, who was in the audience. Here's a snippet of what transpired on that day.
That's how Peter looked 10 years ago, and it isn't true. The Kiss star did not hit the skids. This is not Peter Criss. Kindly welcome the real Peter Criss.
How you doing? Why couldn't you impersonate like the Lone Ranger or a Tano or something like that? You've really given me a rocky time.
You want to say something to Peter?
Well, through all this, I can't tell you how sorry I am about it.
I don't really blame you. I blame the star. On the phone. You, I don't know, and I don't know you either. And you called my house constantly, upsetting me and my child. And that made me very angry.
And you're lying, and you have a lot more to lose than I do.
I have what?
And I have witnesses.
You do?
Oh, yes,
Where do I know you from?
Peter, I remember you.
You remember me?
You came to my home in Clifton at
when?
3 o'clock in the morning. This was back in 81, 82. We were living in Clifton.
81, 82?
And you were private.
I was living in Darien, Connecticut with my child.
Private?
And
you were
my
with
wife.
Jerry Shirley in Privates the night that I met you. The drummer in Humble Pie?
I don't know him.
That's okay.
Just briefly now, you went down to where? Santa Monica to look for your old pal Peter that you read was in the gutter as you read it in Star. Is that so?
Yeah, that's right. I went down to the Santa Monica Pier and looked around for a few hours, and then I finally I found out where I thought he was staying, and couldn't find him the first night. The second night I came back, I saw a guy with about 10 other homeless guys around him. He's like an entourage, like Elvis, and I figured that's got to be him, and so I took him out to eat and got him some food, and we talked about getting him in a hospital. And, he just didn't look enough like the real Peter Criss, but, who knows what alcohol does to you. And so we pursued that, and we got him a hospital to go into. Then this woman that's sitting there, I get a call from her. We're going to put him in the hospital the next Monday. She calls and says, I'm his ex-girlfriend. I've talked to him for 5 hours. It is the real Peter Criss. Because I asked her, I said, are you sure it's the real guy? You should see this guy.
And I asked if you were sure.
How would I know? I wasn't the one that slept with him.
Let me say, there's not a woman here doesn't empathize with this circumstance. What are your thoughts as you listen in on this?
Well, I know that 8 years ago I was pregnant with my child, and he was probably with me every day. And he has been, I think, in the last 13 years. I think we've been apart once, and that was in Tennessee.
Hi, Phil. This is Lydia Criss. I would like to speak to Cheryl Ann. Hi, Peter. Hi, Debbie. How you doing?
Okay.
Good.
Now, Lydia, this is your first wife.
Absolutely.
You wanted to say?
I want to know from Cheryl Ann who I was marrying 8 years ago, because I really don't think she's telling the truth.
All right.
Craig Getch?
I didn't know Craig 8 years ago.
Well, maybe, are you married to Craig Getch?
Yes, I am. Well, what did that have to do with Privates? Privates was closed by the time I met Craig.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I didn't know Craig. I didn't know him 8 years ago.
We've got two.
A married man is not going to admit to an extramarital affair, number one.
Yeah, but you're the one.
Every wife would say that.
Well, look at you and look at my wife, and let's face it.
Cheryl Ann and her mom didn't mention that they called me and Rosie and asked us for $10,000.
What?
They said
They
said they were going to lose their condominium because this guy was.
That's true.
They hadn't paid rent because they had to fly him out.
Right.
And they needed the money.
There was no quote of 10,000.
No quote of money, but
We did use the condo money, but there was not 10,000.
Why don't you ignore this guy? You're a Kiss freak, are you?
Peter Criss freak, then Kiss freak.
Right.
Big fan
And you
of
wanted to
Peter's.
say what?
I just wanted to say, when I first heard about it, I had the same reaction that all the members of the Kiss Army did. We were shocked. But when I first saw the article, just being a Kiss fan for years, me and about 10 other friends automatically knew that it wasn't Peter Criss. Yes, I understand that what alcohol can do to one's face, but we knew. It was unanimous. 10 guys. That's not Peter. We laughed it and threw it away. Basic fans, and you knew this man.
In 1993, Criss and Star Magazine would settle out of court, with the drummer getting a large sum of cash over the false story. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like button and subscribe, and we'll see you again on Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.